My name's Louis, I'm your host, and this is The Sunday Run. Today's episode, we have Jono Hansford, who's a basketball content creator, but also one of the hardest workers I know. I really wanted to get him on, really talk about how hard he works and the things he has put in place to allow him to work that hard. And hopefully we can transfer that across into your lives. You guys can get some motivation and understanding of how he does it. He's an incredible guy. He's got 480,000 TikTok followers, 420,000 Instagram followers, and personifies this idea of providing free value. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy it. This is a really fun podcast. I love making it, and I'll see you on the other side. Alrighty, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 2 of The Sunday Run. Not just The Sunday Run podcast, it's The Sunday Run. That's what we're sticking with here. We've got a huge guest today. One I'm super excited about, someone I'm really inspired by. It's Jono Hansford. Mate, how are you?
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Mate, thanks so much for coming on. I'm really excited. You are the first guest, the first cab off the rank. How do you feel?
Honoured. I don't know why, but I love it. I'm loving it.
Now, for those that don't know, explain what it is you do in terms of like content and in terms of work, and we'll go from there.
I'm like a skill development trainer for pro athletes and high-level individuals in Melbourne, Australia. Mind you, I do some coaching worldwide and post a lot of content to help those I can't train. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, but I teach the skills behind basketball, not necessarily the team side. So there's different aspects to the game, but that's kind of like my niche.
Absolutely. So that's like one-on-one coaching. That's your main
one-on-one, small groups. That's kind of how I run. Like we max out at like sort of 4 to 5 person, because if it gets too large, the quality of training goes down.
Yeah.
So pretty intimate setting.
What about age range? Like what kind of people are you teaching?
I'm very big on under 14s to anywhere pro to 35. That's kind of my range. My range is more typically on that 18s and above. But I do some juniors if they're got sort of high levels of potential. And I can they got that drive and they just really want it, and I'll commit some of my time to them.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Jono is one of the hardest workers I think I've seen, especially in this industry. And like, whilst you have training on one side, you also do a lot of content. 420,000 Instagram followers at the point of kind of this podcast recording, 480K on TikTok around about. Yeah. Crazy numbers. But just like your growth and your commitment to it is incredible. Give us like a brief synopsis of like when you started with content and kind of what's pushed you to keep going with it.
I started posting just like general clips of athletes that I was training for like the last sort of 3-4 years. I didn't really film myself at all until 6 months ago. And so which sounds silly, but I found it was like quite egotistical to film myself, because I thought, I highlight the athlete I'm training. I don't want to make it about me. But about 6 months ago, I started posting myself and I just thought, let's just give it a crack. And people loved it. And I was really thankful of that. So I thought, well, if I can't train in my facility because we haven't taken clients for 9 months, how can I help the wider basketball community? And I'll just show what I'm doing at my facilities. Maybe you can do it at home. That's kind of where my head started with it. So then like when people started enjoying, I just did more of it.
When I think of like that non-transactional nature of content, it's something that I've essentially tried to base the whole Sunday Run thing off, is like not looking for something in return, just providing free advice. I've pretty much taken it from you. Like you personify that in so many different ways. You don't necessarily offer anything for sale. Like you do coaching, but your coaching spots are full anyway. You're not looking for more clients. And then you post all this free content and free tips, and you're not looking for remuneration. Has that always been kind of the goal or the trend with what you want to do?
I think that it's I'd like to sit here and say, I'm a genius for doing it, but I'm not. Like I'm very much where if I'm going to do something, I'll go full belt, and I haven't taken clients in like 9 months. And so waitlist is like 27,000 people. And so there's no way I can get these guys in the facility. Yeah. There's just none at all. So it's like, how else can I help people? And when people found value in it, if I can just give them value, because I'm happy to do it. Like the reason I started making content in the first place was because I was filming drills with my athletes and sending them notes about what we've got to work on. And by accident, one day I just posted one. And I thought, maybe people will like this.
Really?
But it was purely for the point of, how can this help my athlete? How can we get better? And they loved it, and then I posted it, and then people liked it. So it wasn't me sitting here with this grand master plan, but I'm just thinking, if I can help people, I will help people. There's no skin off my nose. I'm doing this editing anyway. I just want to provide as much value as possible, and I'm surprised by as many people that do enjoy it, but I'm really thankful of it. So
What was the response like from that first video?
it was like first one on Instagram, so before TikTok or anything. Just I think it was like 160,000 views, and I was like, all right,
Really, 160?
yeah, like
Was that
first-
6 months ago?
Yeah, it was like 6 months
Yeah.
ago. It was like my first clip, and I was like, and I wasn't doing anything amazing either. I had a bit of a microphone on, and I was doing a basic shooting drill, and I was like, oh, all right. It was reaction based training, so I think it's so often when you see coaches on the internet, they do like a lot of like just drills in their gym, which is nothing wrong with that. But I don't have the time to do that, so I can only film what I'm already doing because I'm coaching like 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so, because I didn't have the time, I thought, I can film what I'm doing in class. And I think that's probably a bit different because people don't typically post a lot of content with athletes. I think it's more you got to have the same setting every time. It's just different factors why I think they either don't do it or they don't have different levels of athletes everyone trains. So I just think by accident I just got into it, and I was very lucky.
That's so cool. Now, just for those listening, like this podcast isn't necessarily going to be completely basketball based. In fact, it's not going to be that basketball oriented. I think there's so many things we can get out of your story, Jono, and apply it to business, to life, and to everyone else. Let's get into you and where you started. You're from Melbourne.
Yep.
When were you born? What were you into? What were you like at school?
So I'm born in Melbourne. As a learner, I'm really dyslexic. So like reading is not my thing. Maths I loved in school, and I always loved the process of learning. So like things like physics I loved because it was the why things make sense. So I think that's more my brain. I think that even reflects the way I teach. It's very much like, it's not just like drilling for workouts. It's like, how can we learn? Even going through school, I was really fortunate. My dad, I started playing basketball pretty late. So I started playing when I was about 11 years old, 11, 12 years old. And if you play elite level sport, that's pretty late to start playing sport. But I figured out like the value of hard work, and that really set me up. So like my first game was terrible. I crossed court like 80 times. I couldn't make a shot. It was shocking. I was running with the basketball like any kid. And my dad said to me, okay, Jono, go make 500 with your right hand, 500 with your left hand before your next game, during the week. And then I didn't. I had this fence next door to my ring, and I every 10 I wrote on the little mark on the fence. Mum was not happy, but my fence is getting covered by like little dashes of 5. And my next game I had like 20 odd points. And I was tall. So I'm not saying this is everyone's just go to start drawing on your fence. I hit puberty early, so I was almost 6 foot when I was 12. I'm only 6'2" now for clarification, so not much has changed with me being 12. But I was really lucky because I didn't just get told to work hard. I learnt the value of working hard. And I think that's really special.
You said you liked learning. Has that been consistent your whole life? You enjoy absorbing information?
I think absorbing information I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I think you can't tell anyone to go learn something they don't want to go learn.
I was listening to something earlier today about like the benefits of being someone that enjoys learning. And I thought it's like if you think about it across a lifetime span, if you actually like learning about something, you are so much at an advantage to anyone else because you're just absorbing in your free time and stuff. Was that like it was for you in terms of basketball?
I definitely enjoyed the process of learning. I think things also didn't come naturally to me. So like I would say I'm a pretty slow learner, so I have to do things so often, but when I get it, I get it.
I'm the exact same, mate.
But it was all, I harp on it, but it was all to understanding why we worked hard. Because once I thought, okay, I got results from doing this, I didn't need anyone to go tell me to go work hard. I worked hard because I knew that if I just really commit to this and I give it a good crack, I'm going to see similar results. And I think that reflects the rest of life. It's like if you're going to go do, if it's content or if it's work or if it's your year 12, or if you commit to it and you give it your all, you're generally going to get better results. You can't just turn up one day and just like think, that didn't go well. I wonder why that is.
You mentioned you were dyslexic, or you are dyslexic. Was that trouble during school? Like, did that get you into trouble at all?
No, like I wouldn't say got me into trouble. Like I really enjoyed school. Like I often look up to older people, and I do, as we talked about, I find that learning process interesting, but it wasn't easy for me. So like, of course, there's times where you just like, you're frustrated when things don't come back the way you were or you try, but it's one of those things where it's like, with basketball, if you want to play at a high college level or whatever the case may be, you have to make sure that your grades are pretty good. So I already had a little bit of that in me, thinking, maybe if I give this a crack, my grades will need to be good. And I even like my dad and mum didn't ever care if I necessarily didn't do well, but they just wanted me to try. And so like, I wouldn't say I was always the best student, but I'd say that I always gave it a red hot crack. And tried to apply myself because I wanted to spend my time outside of school playing basketball. So I didn't want to have to do nothing in class, have all this homework to do. So I tried to smash it out. So that was kind of my method, I guess.
Have you found that, like, being that you were dyslexic when you're a kid and the requirements for learning to persevere and push through that, have you found that's transformed into your training and into your coaching of younger kids? Because I've got ADHD, auditory processing, and like really struggled in school, but I really could have done with, and I probably did have teachers who had learning disabilities and could apply themselves into my shoes where I didn't actually pick up what they were saying and I needed to be taught in a different way. Does that like transform into your coaching? Because from what I can see, like you're so good with the younger kids as well as the older.
Trying to, I guess that I think that I could say, oh, well, it hurt me in different aspects, but there's so many things people have that are really hard on them. And I don't think that if it's ADHD, if it's stuff at home, dyslexia, whatever it is, there's so many negative impacts that it can have. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, woe is me for that shit happening. But I think that one way it has affected is I think I view things slightly differently to people in certain respects. Like my brain is very detailed focused when I'm training. I think that's why I train a fair few pro athletes, because I think I see things slightly differently. And because I love learning the why behind what we do, not just doing drills. I think that's probably what separates, and that might be a bit of the dyslexia, but I couldn't sit here and honestly tell you. But I reckon that if I had to guess, that would have something to do with it.
When did you figure out you were getting pretty good at basketball? Like, when did you figure out you were all right? What age?
I was fortunate because I was taller when I was younger, and being tall and practicing, you're kind of already on another level as a junior. So I was probably better as a junior in reflection to other kids at my age. So I was really lucky that I practiced so much every lunchtime, recess. I get to school early. Like I would do things as crazy as I would change the time on the oven so I could say, hey, Mum, it's 8:20 so I can leave to go to school early to play basketball. Because we had this rule where if you're going to walk to school, you can't you can't leave so early that you're there at 7:30. So and she knew. She wasn't sitting here being oblivious, but I learned how to change the time on the oven to be able to go to school earlier and play basketball. So it was more I think that if you try anything and you practice really hard, and I was lucky because I had a few good coaches growing up as well. That's why I coach community sport, because I was really lucky that I had a few good coaches that with good coaching, good environment, and just like that want to get better yourself, I think you can go pretty far.
What did you see in those good coaches? Like, what were some of the attributes that you found were like handy for you as someone who's been coached as a player?
You've got to, like, as a junior, as much as stuff looks really cool online, you just got to have fundamentals known. And it's really small. You kind of need to, keeping it very simple. In basketball, you need to do a few things like just touch and hand wise for you to have relatively good motor skills as you go through life. So I kind of just fluked it, where I had a few coaches that just sort of thought, okay, make sure you have your hands here. And I had a few good teachers that way. I also, in basketball, you play as like sort of a top age and a bottom age group. I was in a really good bottom age team when I was sort of under 14s or even under 16s at times. Where if you're with those kids that are older than you, it challenges you to go get better. So environment plays a major role, and also just like coaches that know what they're talking about. I was really lucky. Like Andrew Gaze was the ones coach when I was at Melbourne, and he was just so smart and so on where you need to be, and the intensity was awesome. And so like there's definitely things like that I took away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you're a coach now. Was there ever a drive to go professional with your route?
I think yes. Of course, I wanted to growing up, but there's different levels to it. And so just like you playing club footy and AFL players, it's just like there's sometimes a gap between different athletes. I would say I was pretty decent growing up in my age group in my area, and I'm 6'2", so I'm relatively tall. But there's just different levels to it, and as much as you never know if you pursue different aspects of the game. Life happens, work happens, things happen, but it's like it's more. I don't think I was at that level to pursue it to an extreme extent. Still a good basketball player, but I couldn't sit here and tell you I was going to go play the NBA or the NBL. Like those guys are different. They're really, really talented athletes, and I think that my specialty wasn't necessarily playing; it was more so coaching.
Yeah, and how did you because I feel like you figured that out relatively early, didn't you? Like
I fluked that as well.
how did you figure out that you were going to be a good coach or that you could coach? Because I mean, I know in the footy world, it's pretty toxic. It's like, I see it with prime train stuff all the time. It's like, he gets random comments from a few kids being like, well, you didn't play AFL, so how can you coach anyone? It's like, well, I mean, it's a shocking mindset because teaching is such a different route. But how did you figure out, like, okay, I'm not necessarily going to play professional, but I still want to stay in it and I can apply my skills elsewhere and be super good at that?
Well, I didn't really. Like, I was working. I was going to go to uni. A friend of mine, Tubby Murphy, who's a excellent physio right now, but he needed hands coaching in the morning. And another guy, Andre, who coached me growing up, and so I jumped in to help out, and I accidentally fell in love with it. And so I loved it so much. I thought, oh, if I can train a few guys, and I started training more and more pro athletes. And just for free, just to learn and just like half learn from them as I was learning through. And for some reason, people liked it. And so that's just when I just thought, let's just go do more and more of this. And I was first coaching for a few clinics, and on the side, I was coaching relatively almost like 100 people at the time. And so just by accident, it happened. And I was training more pro guys. So it was more, I was very fortunate that I found my thing when I was young. And I also don't think you need to when you're young. Like there's nothing wrong with finding something when you're 24, 25, 40. There's the amount of stories people have when they find their career when they're 50 or 60 is just remarkable. So I got very fortunate in that scenario, and a few things had gone my way. So,
and it comes back to that free advice thing, doesn't it? Like, or that working for free. Not necessarily that we condone that, but it's just like if you love something so much, then putting yourself out there for it, doesn't it?
Yeah, like I had a full-time job as well. Like I was working, and I was thinking, oh, the next year I might go to uni, and like I had another plan that was not involved with basketball whatsoever. And so when that all came about, and I thought, well, I'm loving the coaching. For me to go work for free and me to like help places for free, I wouldn't call that like, I wouldn't say I'm doing it eventually for money. I was just doing it because I loved it. And I was just doing it because I loved learning and helping these guys and getting results and thinking, wow, I'm like this. I was this 17-year-old kid at the time that's like working and coaching and hopefully just getting good results. And I did by accident. So I thought, well, maybe I'll take a step away from this full-time job thing and just commit to the coaching.
What was your fallback plan?
I didn't have one.
You didn't really have one? Did
No.
you have what would your career have been if it wasn't for basketball?
If I went to uni, I was thinking either be like a psychologist or
you'd be good at that.
Work with, or maybe a PE teacher. Like I just like people, and I like talking. Probably pretty evident. I yap on, I yell on my stuff, but I like being around it. And so possibly that, but yeah, I was just really lucky with what I got into.
If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what do you think it would be? Like knowing what you know now and everything that's happened, what would it be?
I possibly wouldn't know the answer, but what I will say is when I was going to leave my full-time job, my dad said to me, Jono, just do it. Like you're 17. If you stuff up, you stuff up. Like at the time, it's like a no-brainer. Like you can go to uni when you're 20, no matter what. You can always fall back on that. And if you can pay your bills and if you can be all right and you just go, like, just commit to it. Because like that, you can't typically, like, at the time I was working like still 80-hour weeks, but I was juggling 40 of them with a company and the rest with my coaching, and I could still live off my coaching. So I sort of thought, and I was living at the home at the time as well. If I can pay my bills and I love this, let's give it a red hot go. That was kind of, so I possibly wouldn't be able to answer that question, but I'd say if you do want to commit to something and you're already getting a bit of leeway, give it a crack. And if you're in a position to, not everyone is, so I'm privileged saying that. But
that one about uni, so I remember coming out of school and just being like I was going on a gap year and I went on a gap year, and like mum and dad were huge advocates for that. But people around me were like, you're going on a gap year, mate. Like, you got to go year 12, then straight to uni, and then into a job, and then you can fucking chill out when you're 50. So I couldn't think of anything worse. Like, the pressure that's created in going to university is pretty ridiculous.
See, I'm probably... I think that's awesome. I can't do that, though. Like, I could not... It wasn't like I sort of took a step back, and I respect it because, like, I physically could not do it. When I'm not, like...
Me neither, yeah.
When I'm not, like, moving and working, I just, like... I don't...
Oh, right, the gap year. Yeah.
So I respect that you can do it. It's even friends, how they take time and they travel and they live their life and they explore. I think that's awesome, but just not really quite in me. But I'm never sitting here criticizing you do it, or I don't think there's one right way to figure out your path. I know so many people that did well, successful when they went through a gap year as well. So I guess there's no really right way of going about it.
No blueprint either.
Yeah.
Mate, this is a running podcast to an extent. It's not actually like we don't do much running, but we had episode 1 last week, and during the episode I'm just like trying to update people because there's a few people that listen to this when they run. So if you are running and you're listening and you're running, keep going. You're going well. I reckon you'd be a fair... How many minutes in are we, Keelan? About 20 minutes in. So you're probably, 4Ks in? You're flying, hopefully. Flying. So keep going. We're with you. We're with you on this race. Jono's with you as well. What would you say to your kids, mate, if they're getting tired during their sessions?
Oh, I don't know if you like this. I just say to myself, you don't feel pain.
Yeah.
Like,
now we're talking.
You just... This is where I gotta watch myself here. But it's like if I think sometimes we tell ourselves the wrong stories. And yes, there's time where you definitely do. This is like pain. You've got injured. There's things that are going wrong. But it's probably just your legs hurt.
It's just your legs hurt.
And half of it's like you just tell yourself, hang on, I'm on a mission here. I'm going to get these numbers done. I'm going to hit this time. You just go do it. It's all mental.
It's literally so true. I think that sometimes when I'm doing fitness, like if I just disassociate from this feeling, then it's not there. Just imagine it's not there.
Well, you're in control. So everything that like every way I feel, every way that I act, I'm in complete control of my actions, and I take complete accountability of all my actions. And so if I'm an athlete and I'm feeling tired, am I really feeling tired? So more possibly don't ask yourself the question, should we stop? It's like, how many more Ks?
Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
How long do I have to go? Like, just keep pushing. Like, that's where, like, you've just got to change that little voice that's ticking away. That's how I'd approach it.
Just while we're on this topic, what's the running components like for basketball training? Like, is it beat test type stuff, like really high sprint efforts? Because they how many Ks do they do a game or miles?
I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I probably would say that there's a lot of fast and stops and deceleration and moving quickly. For one of the challenges I have when I work with older athletes is that often they're really elite athletes and that got them to that point, but actually learning how to change speeds, like learning how to go slow to quick. So almost that, like, if you can be extremely fast, it's perfect. Like in the NBA, they used to choose guys that were really, really athletic. And this is probably 10 years ago, less skilled, thinking, we'll skill develop them and we'll just have that athleticism to work with. Nowadays, it's more skilled based because everyone's just so talented. But definitely, like, if you can have those fast twitch muscle fibers, good on you.
Yeah.
But even if you don't, like, I'm not someone that has, like, I'm not going to bet anyone in a 50-meter sprint, but I learned how to use my speed. I learned how to go to slow to quick as fast as possible, like either by driving my shoulders and loading my quads and learning. In basketball is a funny thing, like, about falling. Like, you want to learn how to be able to fall onto your feet because you're pretty much going from like a vertical. And then if you sort of beat your defender, you want to have to sort of fall and drive. You know how like people are in a sprinter stance?
Yeah.
They're in their sprinter stance ready. We almost want to be able to fall our bodies and then push off. So learning how to fall, which I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of how we frame it.
Yeah, it is. That's something we do at footy training sometimes is like that, allow yourself to fall and then catch yourself and run. And that's like, I think it's meant to be like the best sprinting form is like when you're falling and then that first step is like, that's the look you want.
Yeah, awesome.
Interesting. Anyway, mate, content.
Yep.
420,000 Instagram followers. And that's what happened in
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
So you identified free advice and things that you can do to keep like developing and hitting the algorithms. Was that like clear to you, or was it just like upload things and just see what happens?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. Like, I guess that I think that what I was already teaching, I was just showing clearer ways to show what I was already teaching. But I think the number one thing you've got to do is bring as much possible value to your audience that you can, and find what connects. And so I think that by accident things worked for me, and then I identified them. So for example, like if I've got an athlete in my gym and I've got different angles and I've got a clear microphone on, I've got clear visuals from my camera, that by accident helped the quality of the video. If I tweaked my editing every now and again, it helped the quality of the video. So I basically had a list. I had a list of things I'd basically aim for if I was producing a video. Slightly different in the respect that I'm not necessarily a video maker. I'm more just filming what I do. So more what I was learning how to do was like, how can I make sure I'm projecting my voice? How am I making sure I'm being really clear with the way I'm speaking? How can I make sure that my editing's precise? And if you're someone that's listening and you're like, I want to show people how to bake a salad or make sushi or whatever it is, it's not that hard.
It's not.
And all I did it with was I had a camera and I had an SD card, but I airdropped everything to my phone. I used CapCut. I edit everything myself still to this day. And so it's really pretty simple, and it takes me maybe 20 minutes to make something.
Mate, it's awesome. How do you find the time with it all? Because you're not a full-time content creator. Like you coach. What are your talk us through your hours firstly? Like you get up.
So I'll get up at maybe 8 a.m. pretty much every day, and I'll start coaching sort of from 8:45 till 1, and then I'll have like a half an hour, 45-minute break, and I'll get back coaching, and I'll finish at probably 10:30 or so, and then I'll go home and I'll put the SD card in, and I'll watch all the tape, because as much as I'm doing this for content, I'm actually like athletes first, so I make sure that I'm actually reviewing everything my athletes are doing. I'll send, if there's anything alarming, I'll send it to them in clip form, and I'll show them what they're doing well or what they're doing wrong. And then from that, if I think something's of value for my audience, I'll take maybe one of those 30 clips I do every single night, and I'll upload one of them. But I'll go to bed at too late, so it's probably something I've also got to work on. Like I'm not very good at taking steps back. Like I know that in a few years I'll probably get burnt out, but yeah, tough. Yeah. So we don't feel pain. So
we don't feel pain, baby.
But you just keep going. You just keep going. You feel flat some days, but it's just like find things that make you tick and just go do it.
Absolutely. The filming, like, I don't think people understand how beneficial that is to an athlete. And there wouldn't be many, other than in the professional world, but there wouldn't be many kind of coaches putting in the effort you're putting in. Have you found the response to you filming and then sending like packages to your clients to be amazing?
I think it's interesting because a lot of athletes don't get that stuff before. I think film's a really big thing in sports, especially on the team concept, but not much in skills development world. I also think not every athlete needs it. Like if you're a junior kid, it's pretty simple. Basketball's a pretty simple sport. So it depends who you are. But since I work with a lot of high-level athletes, I will often send footage, and they love it, because I think that often we're in our own sort of head and we can only see what we see, we feel what we feel. But it's once you get shown something, and then also like I might demo it and then show them in the video as well. Like it makes that learning process easier. And I'm with pro clients, I'm only with them as much as we possibly can. But if they're in season or if we're in off season and they're flying around the world, and it's just, if I want to get the absolute most I can from a 1 to 1.5 hour session, I've got to try and what can I do to make their life easier? That's where my head's at.
Yeah, mate, it's incredible.
Yeah.
What about your sleep?
Yeah, blimey.
What's your plans there? Surely you have to fix that.
I'm actually really lucky that if you tell me to fall asleep, I can fall asleep instantly.
Really?
Yep. And so I reckon that's one of the hidden things that as a junior player, because I was training so much, my dad used to bang on about the value of sleep. And so when I turned that light off, I was like trying to fall asleep as fast as physically possible. Like I lie the same way in bed every night. Like, no, genuinely. Like you think I'm playing. I'm not playing. Like I try and keep it cool. I try and like open a window if I need to.
Yeah.
And I'll just make sure that no matter what, I'm trying to fall asleep as fast as possible. Because you got to think, if we've got all this output, so there's a give and take. And so you're trying to, I'm lucky that I'm active with my job, but trying to stay active trying to sleep. Just otherwise, like I think that's the reason why I've been able to go for so long with so much hours, just because like my sleep's always been pretty decent. Like running off almost 8 hours, seven hours
That's
most
pretty
nights.
good. Yeah, that's good. So you find the time. You get in bed and shut your eyes.
Like I'm editing in bed.
Yeah.
I'm doing all my editing like if I'm not eating in the car or whatever I'm doing, I'm like doing all my editing at like maybe at 12 o'clock, 12:30. I'm trying to get to bed.
Yeah, just loves it. You just
Well,
love
it's
it.
not. It's like I don't think you necessarily need to love it. Like
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things you do just because you have to, and you tell yourself you have to. And I think it's a hard thing to say to be the best in the world at something, but I want to be the best I possibly can be. And because of that, it's not always going to be happy. Mind you, I don't think it needs to be. I think there's times you just get after it, and there's times where I don't want to edit. There's times where I don't want to do the best, but I just got to.
Do you think you're competitive? Like, I know you've got a really competitive nature. Do you think your competitive spirit's really pushed your content?
Yes. I like.
What's it look like for you?
Like, it's when I say push my content, it would push me to do my best and do my best as a trainer. But that also means that even if I'm not with you, I'm still trying to train you. Like if we can be global and I've got, let's just say it's roughly 1 million people on social media. Even if I'm not actually like there with you, I want to do my job, my best to be able to help you online if I can. And so that means like there's no day where you're ever going to catch me not posting a video. Or if I can do it twice a day, I will, because I want you to get better. And if I'm committing to myself that mentally, I'm going to do it. That's where my head's at.
What's your content schedule look like roughly?
3 times a day, 3 to 5 times a day on TikTok, and once, twice a day on Instagram. Depends the mood. Like if the Instagram's going really well, I'll post twice.
Yeah.
But only if the content's of value. Like it always comes back to if it's really high quality content, chuck it on there. I think the audience on TikTok is more, they want as much as physically possible. And so sometimes I'll post stuff that is beneficial, but I wouldn't say I would put it on my Instagram. So my Instagram is more sort of my top tier kind of quality. And TikTok, I chuck stuff is still definitely beneficial, but it's more like my testing ground. So if people love it, I know, hey, people are finding value here off this, and then I'll put it on my Instagram. That's kind of how I structure it. But it's just like, how can we really deliver value?
Yep. Yeah, mate. You're such your grind is ridiculous to it all. What's your future plans for content? Like, what do you have in store? Are you going to change things up? Like, do you want to work towards anything in particular, or
future plans? There is me as a trainer. Like I in my industry, I want to be the best, and that's where my head's at. So the content stuff is cool for me, but it's really be the best I can be, and constantly be learning, constantly be watching film. And I think by accident, everything else makes sense. By accident, if I'm getting better at my job, my content's going to get better because I'm providing even more value. And if I'm constantly learning and finding new things and seeing, like, quite honest, I watch so much film of either other pioneers in the industry, whether that be Drew Hanlon or Phil Handy and guys that I looked up to growing up. I've pretty much watched all of their stuff. And then from that, I'll go watch game tape and I'll try and make little connections myself and I'll ask players. And once I learn that information, I'm trying to give. I'm just trying to give because I got really blessed with really high quality information. And so the more I think that, to answer your question, the more that I'm trying to be the best I possibly can be, especially in this side of the world, I think that's just going to help content-wise, everything-wise. And there's definitely stuff where I want to like involve my audience a bit more as well. So I'm still in that process of learning. So I think that's a step I've got to take forward. I think even this sort of stuff you're doing is phenomenal. So like trying to get on your level and chuck a podcast in there every now and again, I think would be helpful. It's hard because I'm not doing this as a content creator. I'm doing this as a trainer.
Do you think you'll ever make that switch?
I would never say never. I think that if I will always be able to do what I'm doing now content wise because I'm doing it anyway. I'm already filming for guys I'm training. Go really, really heavy into content. I think I'd love to, but my team would need to grow in the back end. The people you don't see behind the camera. just so my life can be a little bit. I've only got so much capacity, and my hours are pretty tapped out right now. And so if I'm going to do something, I'll commit to it. But that means other areas of my life need to give. Like I still coach community basketball. Like I coach, like you might be community footy for some of you, or athletics club, but I coach community basketball, which is at McKinnon, and they're a great club and they're really good to me, and the kids we have through are awesome. But because I had good coaching, I coach that, and that I really hope that never changes. But you got to think that's like 10, 15 hours a week. That's purely because I want to help either my community where I can hopefully make an impact.
Do you ever get concerned about bandwidth? Like a huge thing in our little content house we have is like talking about not spreading yourself too thin. Like I've been meaning to get onto YouTube recently, but like Instagram seems to be hitting up for me. So I literally cannot do both at the same time. I can only put my eggs in one basket. Do you ever get concerned that you're spreading yourself too thin, or do you think you've mastered it to a point that you don't need to worry about that?
You're definitely on the right point, track. You're definitely right. It is a concern at times. And if you're watching, I apologize if I haven't got back to my DMs. But like because I'm so dyslexic. Yeah. And let alone I'm probably getting maybe 1,000 or so a day, and that's like emails or whatever it is. I physically can't get to them all. So that's an area in my life where you asked me 4 months ago, I would have done my best to help every single one, every single athlete with their videos.
It's a nice idea, but yeah.
And so that's probably something that's gave a bit. And there's things where your relationships will give. Like you've only got so much you can give to people. And there's times I've lost either friendships or relationships or whatever that is because like I've chosen to put all my energy in one place. And that's not something I recommend to people. That's just that was my choice.
Losing friendships and relationships, does that concern you that you're losing those, or is it?
Yes. Yes. But, and like I have to like make sure I have alarms and I have it through my diary when I'm got to make sure I'm checking with people because like I owe that to them because they're good friends to me as well. Most of my true friends checking with me once or twice a month might not sound like a lot to everyone online, but the way that I am as a person, that's like we understand our friendship, I'd say. Would I say it's a beneficial thing or not? I'd say it's one area I definitely got to improve my life. I've got to make sure that I make it a priority. But when you talk about bandwidth and sacrifices, that's kind of what it is.
That's it.
So it's not always easy, but you just got to. If I want to be the best on at least this side of the world of doing it, things got to go, and that's not a nice thought. But there's sacrifices if you want to be the best, and there's aspects. I think I'm also really lucky that a bunch of my friends I train just by accident. Like a few of my mates, I'm really lucky to have those friendships, and I think that I'm in an industry where there's so many really good cats, and if I take them on, or if I value that person really highly because I give so much to it and they give so much to me. Where it's like just by accident we become better friends. But it's definitely a challenge. So I wouldn't say I have that mastered. I have a few things I do all right, but definitely not everything.
Mate, it's hard. It's hard work trying to do all of that, and then you got like social life, relationships, and stuff on top of it. Do you go out much? Like, what's hobbies look like?
I haven't had a drink for 3 years.
Yep. You don't have time.
Well, my dad doesn't drink as well, which probably has a psychological. I don't know. The psychologists can tell me if that has an impact. But if I want a drink that tastes nice, I'll have like a Pepsi or whatever it is. But I don't typically drink. I'd much rather, like when I used to have an apartment. I had this table. I just cook for people. People come over. I cook for them. Just the energy was electric, and that's what made me happy. I'm probably not someone that's gonna go to a club. Nothing wrong with it. Just doesn't tick my box, I guess. But not anything against it. I guess if I loved it, I probably would do it more. But just not my personality, I guess.
Are you single?
Yep.
How do you go about meeting new people?
I'm not in a rush.
You're not in a rush.
Like,
not looking to.
I think one day if it happens, it happens. But I think it would be unfair for me to be in a relationship because I work so much. And then how could I possibly give to that person if right now my life demands so much time? And that's just unfair. And like I don't blame like anyone if it's friends or relationships that have left because it's not easy on them. And I can't sit here and be selfish and expect that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Going well, mate. One last question on the content side of things. What's your biggest failure in regards to content and how'd you learn from it?
Great question, mate. When I was lucky enough to train, his name was Ben Air, and he plays for Cairns right now in the NBL, and we trained together like 6 times a week for damn near a year before he went away. And I wish I filmed more of that. But like we were just getting after it, and he was a killer athlete. But just the improvements he was getting, I was really proud of. And I just wish, in hindsight, Jono, just turn on that camera,
Just do it.
Yeah,
They won't care.
yeah. And even like I had social media for 3 years, and it took me like the last 5-6 months to start filming myself. You goose, like you could have been helping more people. Like that's where my head's at, where it's like I was a bit of a dumbass because I had this thing where it's like it's egotistical to film yourself. But it's like you actually can provide value, and it's not. I was talking to a gym owner last week. He's a lovely guy, trains a bunch of high level athletes, and he was talking about like the social media side of things. And I said, mate, like you got the athletes coming through, but no one knows you're doing it. Like you got to show a bit of yourself, because if these people are going to sit online, they're going to think, hey, let's go do this class, or if you want to go, whatever it is. Like show what sort of experience they'll be getting if they go there, and I'm sure that'll help. Like I think it's just so why people like you on the internet, or like Tom or Gabe or whatever it is. It's more like how can you connect with your person and just be a little bit more personal. Mind you, that's something I've got to get better at as well. I'm probably not personal like you or Tom or Gab is at this stage, and I respect that highly because I'm still getting you. I didn't set out to be a content creator. And so like seeing you guys do it, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I reckon there's so much we can apply like all of this to business and stuff. What's an insult that you've received that's been good, that you're proud of?
I had a lot of people thinking I was really stupid for opening my facility. And so, and they'll probably be right. Like it was start of COVID, had this training facility. I can't say how much of it is, but it's a lot. And I think I just turned 18 at the time. And so that was a pretty big concern from the outside. And I've got like ignorant levels of self-confidence at times. So like I was like, I'll figure this out. But like realistically, I probably was 6-7 months off from starting that. But you just gotta put your jump in the deep end. And I think another thing on that was that there was not necessarily an insult, and they probably shouldn't have trained with me. But when I was younger, when I was like 17, I would train anyone because I wanted to get so good at what I did. Like I'd ask my friends that I play with growing up, hey, come do a session. Like I'm not charging you. Just like let's just like get after this, and you like it, awesome. And not really many that do it because like, oh, who's this young kid that's like same age as me? What is he going to teach me? And mind you, as he should, because I was pretty young in the industry. But at the time, I was thinking, hang on a minute. Come down. What's the worst that's going to happen? And mind you, now like I get the amount of training people want. I can't do it, and even people that I grew up playing with, and I'll try and do a session every now and again if I can, but I physically can't do it. But like 2 years ago when 3-4 years ago when I first started, that was your time. But like that's not an insult. I also understand why they didn't do that. But like me at the time was like, bugger, I'm like, I'll rebound for you. Just come down. And,
I just want to work with you.
For sure.
That's so fair. I feel like you'd get a lot of people like insulting, and not actually insulting, but like being like, geez, you work you work too hard almost.
For sure.
Yeah, there'd be
like
a lot of that.
People definitely tell me about issues.
Yeah.
Like 1000%. And they're probably right. Like there's definitely something going wrong there that's caused that little the amount of time that I put towards it.
I feel like you found a way to like really embrace the grind and like really enjoy the grind. Do you have tips for people doing that in everyday life? I mean, obviously, like you're super passionate about what you do, but I feel like it can be applied in so many different ways. Like people who are working a 9-to-5 job, or even who want to get out of that 9-to-5 job, need to do extra hours after work and be working the kind of hours you're working. Do you have tips for trying to embrace it and enjoy it?
One thing I would say is that happiness isn't just accidentally happen. It's you have to work towards what you want. And even if that means happiness or finding pleasure in your life or if your job, you have to actually take an active effort to give a shit. Like, I can't be coaching and thinking, oh, I'm really not feeling it today. I'm finding this really boring. Hang on, Jono, you're actually in control here.
Yeah.
How can you put some music on, or how can you like get some energy involved? And even with work, like I used to work in retail when I first started working, and the attitude that you approach anything you do with will affect the way you feel. Even if you fake it to yourself at times, and I'm not the same with running, but when I used to run in the mornings, I used to just hate tying my shoelaces. I'm like, what am I doing out of bed in the morning? It's like, and then you start, and you think that's why I do it.
Yeah.
And there's even that with the work. It's like, if you really give it a red hot crack, and maybe it's not in work, maybe it's something you can do outside of work, take some level of control, take some accountability. We can't just sit here and think, well, it's shit. Have a cry. Like, at some extent, it's got to be just choose to give a shit.
Yeah.
That's where my head's at.
It's like that happiness is a choice thing, but also sadness is a choice, I've heard. Like, I agree with that to some point.
There's
obviously,
scales of it,
situation, obviously. But like for most people, especially if you're living in Australia, chances are if you're listening to this podcast, like, you can choose to be happy, but you can also choose to be sad. If they're listening to this podcast right now, they may not be like they're choosing to not be sad. They're choosing to be happy because like you have to switch this podcast off and be pissed off and like actually feel angry to be sad. I think there's something in that in regards to like the everyday 9-to-5 and stuff. Like, if you're just fucking getting up and just like so miserable with what you're doing, you got a frowning face on and stuff.
Well, like, life isn't easy. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. It's not. Like, there's times where it sucks. Like, when I had my first on my facility and I couldn't afford bills. I couldn't pay for anything. I was working like 13-hour days doing like really affordable individual sessions, and even if I could put them all in a group, I couldn't, because I needed everyone to pay like an individual price to be able to pay the bills. Like, I had to find a way to survive, and I did not enjoy it. But you just got to go through it. Well, you maybe not got to go through what I did, but you've got to like. There's shit is going to be happening, and I'm not saying you can just flip a switch, but it takes work to be able to flip that switch. That's more what I'm trying to say.
What makes you happy?
My work.
Yeah.
My work makes me happy. Seeing others improve. Like, I could not start to comprehend how much happiness and proudness I had when like Ben Air first stepped on his court, because he was like my first NBL athlete. And so like the amount of time that I put to this, it's not necessarily for me. I know I've only had a small part to play in their journey. Don't get it stuffed up. It is not. It is me having a very small part to play. But that sense that lets me to sleep at night. Like, I've got like 9 guys that are probably a year or two away from making the NBL, and that's what makes me tick. And that's even coaching junior basketball, seeing improvement. That's what makes me tick. It's not all social media. Yeah, it's cool because I appreciate it. I always want to do right by people, and I think by accident that fills me with some sense of meaning. Maybe not happiness. I don't think I'm always happy, but the purpose from the way that the results I get, the way I impact people, the way that like I see that improvement, I see them like even like teaching kids how to drive. Like, I've taught so many of my kids how to drive manual. Like,
how good.
It's awesome. But a lot of these, like, we sit in my car park.
Yeah.
And we just slowly go through how to use the gears. Like, that's like seeing people grow as people, I think also like makes me tick a little bit. But there's no one right way of how to be happy, but that just works for me.
Yeah. If you can teach someone how to drive manual, you can teach them to do anything, I reckon. That's like the core and the essence of like learning how to drive, I reckon. Or learning how to learn, or learning how to teach.
I just think it's, I don't know, something about that complete control, I guess, is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think all these, like, taught girls how to drive manual and guys, and I think it's just like, it's a hard thing to overcome, just nervous, but it's like anything, if it's even not just like basketball, if you're clear and you have very clear ways to fix things and talk your way through it,
I got so bored into this conversation, I forgot to think about the runners who are running while they're listening to it.
I apologise.
Do you have any advice for them? Stop feeling pain?
No, like, just keep going. Like, like I've been training and trying to get in shape for the last 3-4 months.
Yeah.
But you just consistently do it. Just like even if you
Keep going, baby.
yeah, even if you don't feel like it, even you just getting outside and starting to run,
Yeah.
probably will mean you just keep going.
Yeah.
But just start.
Perfect.
Just
mate.
start.
You bang on. Now I've got a few. I put a story up.
Oh, I love it. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
and we got. I said send in some questions for Jono. You coming on the pod? And we got some good ones. Like some, I'm really happy with they stepped up. So first one is from James.Stewart. What is your end goal?
I really want to be the best in the world at what I do. Really want to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard thing because it's like, what does that mean? Is that social media? Is that being a trainer? Like, I could never, I'm not in America, so I could not say NBA stuff. I just want to be like, I want to really help as much as possible in Australia and just do my like complete best and just make such an impact on the NBL. And even if it's guys going to college or developing basketball here in Australia, I think that what the AFL is with footy is just like the energy's electric. I think we're not quite there with basketball yet. So I think one, from a brand perspective, hopefully helping kids really getting into it because the league is like a top 3 league in the world. And secondly, if I can just be like almost like a hub for talent. Like if you want to get better and you're playing pro, I want to get you there.
Yep.
That's where my head's at.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Next one from Josh Under. How much has the skill of basketball players changed in the time and their styles with playing? Like how much is the skill style? And
Well, I wouldn't say that I necessarily teach drills. I more teach the practice of learning. So what to look for, not to get too wordy, but the game is so fast, learning how to make really quick decisions that are meaningful. I think that's missing for a lot of it. The skill has like drastically improved over even from the last like 30 years to 40 years. It's not the same as it used to be. Everyone has to be talented from point guard to center. Everyone needs to have a variety of skills. Me being 6'2", I used to play a 3 when I was growing up. As I got older and older, I had to be a 1. And I wish I had someone say, Jono, you're going to be too small. You gotta be learning how to bounce the ball properly. And I learn it by default by all the training and stuff I've been doing and learning myself. But even if you are a center, and I'm not saying go do it on your rep game or your state game, but like just learn in your backyard, like give it a good crack, and try and eventually you'll have those skills in your bag. That's what I would say.
fantastic. Tom Bockma says, who's your favorite NBA player and why?
I'll give you 2 answers here. I love LeBron James, so I think he's just amazing. I think he's really good. He's my favorite player to watch. Favorite player as like from a skill development perspective, it would either be CJ McCollum's really talented. Jason Tatum I love. I'm not really giving you one-word answers here. Who do I watch? James Harden uses his body so well. I'm not a massive fan of his game, but I love how he uses his body and how he goes from fast to slow. Like he's not the fastest guy out there, but he uses his strength really well, and he uses his ability to the speed he has. He has mastered like when to go fast, when to go slow. I think that's really special. But purely watch, I'd say LeBron. Like he's just like
LeBron.
6'8", built like a brick shit house.
Yeah.
Like he's just I could not like he's remarkable. Just all-time leading scorer. I could not. I like the way that he holds himself. I just think, yeah, probably him.
Okay, good answer. Next one from Dan Finnegan _ What is it like working with athletes trying to get to college? And then he's given a name, but I won't say the name just in case.
It's awesome.
Yep.
It's really cool. I love the drive. I also love if they're a new athlete with me. I think that I enjoy seeing the process and that almost light bulb moment when they're figuring things out. It's hard because I think that college basketball, nothing's processed and nothing's promised and nothing's a guarantee. And there's more than just basketball to play with college basketball. Like you got team, you got locker room. There's a whole bunch of things that are important. From my perspective, I love college guys. I love anyone that just really wants to get after it. You tell me you want to get after it and you want to learn, you're actively listening, you're sending me videos of you in the spare time. I love it. I don't care what level it is. You're my rep team. You send me videos of things we're working on. I'm happy. So as much as the college stuff and the NBL stuff is cool, NBL stuff I love. It's like it's the stuff where I get to be as creative and really make an impact. But everything else I still really genuinely love. Just people that just want it.
2 questions left, both from Billy_Barton22. First one is hardest thing about coaching.
Everyone is different.
Yep.
Learning, adjusting for personality types and how I approach sessions. It's one thing to know what you're talking about. It is another thing to be able to adjust for the athlete, and because everyone learns slightly differently. And if you want to be an excellent coach or teacher or boss, you need to learn what makes your people tick. And when you learn that, that's what separates.
Final question from Billy. Favorite thing about coaching?
Just seeing people get better. That's really simple. That's just like just seeing them get better, and it sounds selfish, but like having a small part of it where I've made hopefully a small impact, and even just them as people. Like I've been doing this for years now, and I see kids that I start in year 7, and now they're driving a car, or now they've finished high school. Like that just makes me happy.
Mate, thanks so much for coming on the potty. This has been fun. This is our best one yet.
I don't know
1 out of 2.
1 out of 2. I hope so.
Hard
But
not to.
I'm glad I yapped on a fair bit. But
No, you did really well.
But if you're running, run harder.
Yeah. Well, they're done now, so they're cooling down.
Awesome.
But mate,
Thank
thank
you
you so much. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Good stuff.